Hey there, today's tutorial is about raw editing. I want to show you how I edited this raw file. This is an image that I took in Ireland. This is the Samuel Beckett Bridge in Dublin. And I want to show you how I edited this photo. You'll find the raw file, the DNG file, on my website. In the video description you will find the link that will take you there so you can download it and work with it. I'm going to show you the original image. So I started working with this, but because I use the raw file, the raw format allows you to recover a lot of detail on the image, and we will end up with this. You can see we have a lot of dust and a lot of things here. I'm going to show you how to clean the image and how to get this result. I hope you will like it, and let's start. Okay, I'm gonna work first in Lightroom, but if you don't have Lightroom, you can work in Photoshop. Now, I'm gonna show you how to open a raw file in Camera Raw in Lightroom, but if you wanna skip that, you can do it and just skip to the part where I start editing the photo here in Lightroom. For those who don't have Lightroom, what you can do is you can download this DNG file and open it with Photoshop. In fact, I'm gonna show you how to do that. So here we have the DNG file. I'm gonna right click on it and open with Photoshop CC, and by default it opens it with Camera Raw. Now here you have exactly the same settings that I have here in Lightroom. The only difference is that the panels here are different. In Lightroom we have this sidebar here with all these panels, and here in Camera Raw you find the same panels, but you have the icons of each of them, and you find this tabs here, so you can switch and you have everything here. So I'm gonna continue with Lightroom, but if you have here Camera Raw, you can make the edits and then press the Shift key. This will change this to Open Object, and that way you open it as a smart object, and if you double click on that smart object, you will go back here to Camera Raw and you can make tweak the settings if you want to. Let's go back here in Lightroom, and this is where I have all the photos that I took there. The conditions were horrible, a lot of rain, wind, and it was impossible to keep the lens free of dust, and you can see it's very dirty, and as I said, it's because of that. The conditions were very bad and it was hard to take a nice picture. So editing this, I was able to recover the detail. You can see out of other angles, a lot of well, I tried different white balances from different places, and well, I think this photo is the one that came out better. So let's start editing this. This is the original image, and this is what I edited in Lightroom. I'm gonna start working on this, which is the original one. I didn't make any too many changes here in Lightroom. I just changed a bit the temperature. I set it to 2828, and then the contrast, I also increased that to 8. The settings that you put here are really up to you. I'm just showing you what I did. Then I usually start with the shadows and highlights. Here I have it in Spanish, but these are the shadows. So just increase this. You can see the darker parts of the image get brighter, and maybe a bit the blacks. And I really reduce the highlights because you can see here on the lights, usually they are burnt out if you use a longer exposure. You can see I took this at 11 millimeters. I used the Tokina 11 to 16. And at f13 ISO 200, and the exposure was 25 seconds because I wanted to get this smooth water effect there. And that's what I did. I just decreased a bit the highlights and increased maybe a bit the whites, like that. Then the clarity, I set it to 10. Here it's not the hue, I don't remember the English name. The Vibrance, I think it's called, 21, and here the saturation to 13. Then this is all that I did here. I just increased a bit the saturation, increased a bit the clarity, and a bit the contrast, and added some light there on the shadows. Now I'm gonna scroll down, and you just have to look for the split tone section. And here I like to use split tone effects on the images. And on the highlights, I have a hue of 59 and saturation to 27. I set the balance to 27 as well, so I went a bit more towards the highlights part. You can see that now the image is warmer. And that's because I set this yellow here on the highlights. And on the shadows, I have 225 for the hue, so a bit colder, a blue tone, and 19 for the saturation. And this is the effect that we get. If I deactivate the split tone, you can see how it looks, and if I reactivate it, you can see now it looks a bit different, a bit colder. Now here on the details, you can increase a bit the sharpness and probably decrease a bit the noise. This will make the image a bit smoother, and it reduces the noise. What else? Here on the lens correction, on the color section, here you have to zoom in to see the problems. If you have color fringing and chromatic aberrations, you should see that here, and you can see it clearly right here on this window. You can see this magenta, this tone here, some green here. Some of the green here is from the window itself, but some of it's from the chromatic aberration. And just click this remove chromatic aberration, and Photoshop will do a Camera Raw or Lightroom will do a pretty good job removing it. If you still see some of that, like for example right here, you can still see some of that blue. You can move this to the blue tone, or and that's it. Let's zoom out. And next I'm gonna go to the profile tab here, and I will activate this profile correction. And here on the brand of the lens, I'm gonna choose Tokina because that's the lens that I used, and it should automatically know which one I used based on the metadata of the photo, and that's the Tokina ATX 11-16 2.8. And with this, if you deactivate it, you can see it corrects the geometric distortion and some vignetting. And that's all that I did here in Lightroom. I didn't clean the image here, I didn't use any gradients, anything like that. I did that in Photoshop, but if you want, you can do it here. What I will do now is just right click and choose Edit in Photoshop CC. If you used Camera Raw, just press the Shift key and click the Open Object, and that's it. I'm gonna close this image over here. This is the final image. You can see reading Camera Raw format. It's opening that image here in Photoshop. And well, I'm gonna let that open and close Photoshop so that my computer runs a bit faster. And we're now ready to start editing this. I'm gonna create a new document on top. And here you can name it, for example, clean. And here I'm gonna use the clone stamp, the spot healing brush tool, and make sure to check sample all layers, zoom in at 100% or to whatever zooming level you're comfortable with. And because we have sample all layer or unique layers, all you have to do is just click and paint over the spots that you have on your image. As you can see, we have quite a lot of them. I'm gonna speed up the video here and continue when I'm done. Okay, I think I cleaned all the spots here. I made this a bit quick, but these two ones that we see over here are a bit hard to remove using the spot healing brush. So instead, I used the clone stamp tool. All you need to do is be careful and sample here with the Alt key. Just click nearby, just click there, move down, and make sure you align this perfectly, and just click there and you're done. And this area over here, you just sample from a nearby area, and that's it. There are better ways of doing it, yeah, I'm sure, but this is something that it's just minor. It's not going to be visible if you do it right, so I don't think it's worth complicating things. So I'm gonna stick with my clone stamp tool. I think it's okay for this, and as you can see, it's not very noticeable there. Okay, now that we're done cleaning the image, I can still see something over here, something really faint, but I'm not gonna retouch that. I'm gonna leave it like that. And let's move on. Let's start making the first adjustments to our image. First, I'm gonna add a curves adjustment, and I'm gonna add there. And I'm gonna go into the channels. I'm gonna start with the blue. And I have 2 points here. The first one on the shadows with an input of 54 and output 64. So I added more blue on the shadows, and on the highlights I'm gonna add some yellow with input 187 and output 167. So we have the split tone effect that makes the image a bit colder. Then this is especially for the sky. We're gonna mask this. We will only see this effect on the sky. Next, I'm gonna go into the red channel, and here I have again 2 points. The first one here on the shadows on the bottom left, input 82 and output 64. So more cyan. And on the top right one with input 186 and the output to 212. Okay, so this is the change that I made. As I said, I made this for the sky. I wanted the sky to be more blue. If you want to lift this effect to the whole image, you can do it. You can use this layer mask, and if you don't want to apply it on the bottom part, you can use this layer mask, use a linear gradient and just create a layer mask like that, and you're done. What I did is I went a bit further and I used the quick selection tool, and I made a selection. I selected the background layer and I created a selection of the building side here like that. I'm gonna speed up the video again. It's just a basic selection, as you will see. Okay, so this is my raw selection. Everything that is selected here will be masked, so the effect will not be visible over the areas that I have selected over here. I'm gonna select the layer mask now, and I'm gonna fill it with black, so the effect will not be visible here. And now if I set this layer mask on full screen, you can see the edges are pretty jagged, and actually if you deactivate the effect, you can see the changes on some parts. So be careful. We use a brush tool. Use the brush tool to paint over the areas that need more attention. I'm gonna switch to the white and just paint over the areas that you see a very big difference. Here on these cables over here, I could paint with black to hide the effect, because these were not being, I did not select these areas when I made my selection. So I could use the brush tool to paint here, and using the shift key you can create straight lines. So you click here, press and hold the shift key, and then click on another point, and this will create a straight line. And with a smaller brush you can paint over here, even though this is not going to be very visible because it's a very small area. On these cables over here you don't have to do it because it's not going to be noticeable. If you want to smoothen this layer mask, you can apply some Gaussian blur, or you can use the fade. You can use the fade option. If you double click on the layer mask on Photoshop CC, you should have this fader slider, and if I put the layer mask on a full screen. You can do this with Alt and clicking on the layer mask. If you increase the feather, you can smooth the layer. You can smoothen the layer mask, and the transition is smoother. But be careful, because sometimes this could be bad, especially here. You can create halos on your effect. So with just a few pixels, that's enough. 2, 3, 4 pixels, depending on the canvas size that you have. I'm gonna leave it on 2, and that's it. Okay, so we have the sky ready. You can see the before and after. I think it looks better now. And we can now move on and make more color changes. I'm gonna add 2 color lookups, 1 and 2. On the bottom one, I will use a preset that I will give you. I found this on the internet. It's called DK79, and it gives the image a really nice green and orange tone. I'm gonna give you this on my website. You'll find the link to download this preset, and all you need to do to install it is locate your where you installed Photoshop and go into the presets folder, and there you have to find another folder that it's called 3D Lookup or something like that, or 3DL or something like that, and paste that preset there. If you cannot find it, just look over the internet how to install presets, and just paste it there and restart Photoshop. Or from here, I think you also you should be able to select new load 3DL. Just use this and locate the file that you just downloaded from my website, and you'll have this effect. Here I set the blend mode to color, and I set the blend mode, the opacity, to 38%. One of the things that I didn't like about this is here on this light, this red light. You can see we have this strong line over there, and also on the blue it affects those colors, but especially the reds. Here on the lights as well, you can see it. So what I wanted to do is not blend this effect if the color is red, and you can do this from the layer properties. If you double click here, you will open the layer styles, and here on the bottom, on the blending options, you have the blend if section. What I did is I switched the blend if and I set it to red, and now I can tell this layer that if the underlying layer, in this case, well, everything that is below, is red, I don't want to blend that. So what I did is just press and hold Alt key, clicked here, and move this towards the left until you start to see that over here this starts to fade away. Okay, so I set this to 171, and you can also move this one if you want, but well, anyway, just move this until you see that it's no longer affecting the red tones there. So now everything that is red, this effect is not being applied over the red tones. Great, let's move on, and now I'm going to activate the second color lookup, and this time I use the crisp warm effect. This is available in all Photoshop versions that have the color lookup, and the color lookup is available since Photoshop CS6, I think. And here I let the blend mode to normal and set the blend mode to the opacity, to 20%. And here I did a similar thing. I went into the layer styles. This time I left the blend if to gray, and I set the underlying layer to to the black, and I press and hold the Alt key, clicked here, and moved this to 90. And I'm going to show you why. With this preset, I'm going to leave that back to 0. With this preset, what you do is increase the contrast on your image. You can see that it makes it darker. The dark parts of the image are already too dark if I add this, and I didn't want to make them even darker. So what I did is I used this. I don't want to apply this effect on dark areas because it will make them even darker, and I don't want to do that. So I just press and hold the Alt key and split this. The reason why I split it, if you don't press the Alt key, you move both of them. But you can see the transition is very hard, especially over here. See those lines there? What you can do is move it slightly and then split it. use the Alt key and split the effect, and the transition is a lot softer. To about 90, 95, it's okay. And that's it. Now let's add another curves adjustment, and this time I used all layers, all three channels. Sorry, on the blue I have 2 points, one with input 38. I'm gonna give you the exact values, but this is another split tone effect. Output 44, another point here for the highlights, 202 for the input, and for the output 190. Again, as you can see, a split tone effect. Then on the green I have 4 points, one over here, 49, output 52, then a second point with 79 and 79, and this is just because I don't want to affect the rest of the tones, just the shadows. Then another point, input 103 and output 105, and then another one with 180 and output 180. So again, I left it exactly over the line because I just want to affect these tones over here, and that's it. And on the red channel we have 3 points, one with input 21 and output 17, a second one with input 56 and output 56. Again, here I want no change, I just want to affect these really dark tones, and then here I put this over the line to not, because I don't want to affect those tones. And then another point with 120 and 128. So again, from here it starts to add another tone, in this case red on the midtones, and the highlights here are left how they are. Great, now this is the before and after. See the change? Next, we're almost done. We just have 2 more layers. A Vibrance Adjustment. I'm gonna add it from over here if I can find it. Right here, Vibrance. If you don't have Vibrance, you can use the hue saturation. I set the Vibrance to 41 and the saturation to 22. It's a bit too intense, I think, so I will drop the opacity a bit to, let's say, 70 or something like that, 70%. And you can see that we have a big change already. Some of the highlights here are too bright, maybe. So you could probably decrease them a bit more here in Lightroom. If you use Camera Raw, you can simply double click on the smart object, you open it in Camera Raw, drop it, and that's it. In my case, I cannot do that because I used Lightroom, and I don't know if you can open images as smart objects. Maybe you can, but I don't know it. And next, if you want to add more brightness on some of the tones, just add a new layer, set it on color dodge, and use the brush tool and a very, very dark tone like this, and just use a soft brush and paint over the areas that you want to make brighter, like for example this one's over here. But as I said, my images, my highlights are already too bright. On the original one, it's this one, you can see they're a lot dimmer, so I had to make them brighter a bit, but it depends on your image. Also, I'm working on 16 bits, and this one I think it's on 8 bits, yes. So that's how I edited this raw image. Again, I'm going to show you the original and where we started from. Actually, I'm going to copy this and put it over my edited image. So we started with this and ended up with this. I think it's a pretty nice change. If you think the edit is extreme, well, I just show you how to do it. It's up to you if you want to do it or not. I hope you liked it. If you upload your photos on Instagram, remember to use the hashtag PSDBox, both for Instagram or Facebook. I'm Andrei from PSDBox. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next tutorial.